How's it, sticklers? And thanks for joining us again. Tonight, we're going to talk about some things that Thomas did over the weekend at IGN. We'll get into some trailers involving some video games we love, and we'll talk about some reviews of the new Acolyte, Hitman, and of course, Sweet Tooth. Enjoy! How's it, sticklers? The Joystick Show is back for our weekly pod where we talk story about the things we've read, watched, or played. You know, the things that bring us joy. Shakas Mahalas for sticking around. If can, please like and subscribe on any and every podcast platform. And of course, on YouTube. I'm your co-host, Drake, and that's Scott.
How's it?
And we're missing the one in between, Tom Baum, because he had some things done over the weekend that, of course, you've seen on our social medias and all these other things. We'll definitely have more specific time to talk about it. But producer Nikki Rock in the back hanging out with us today as well, too. Tonight, we've got some news. We've got some trailers. We've got some reviews. In the news, it's pretty short. But Scott, what do you want to start with first and foremost?
Let's just start with Tom. So Tom past weekend went to the IGN live event.
Yep.
Big shout out to Geek Freaks podcast for hooking that up. I believe he went with them as well. You got to see a lot of cool stuff. I mean, if you jump on our socials, you'll see a lot of cool reels of him doing a lot of cool things. There were so many video games to play and try, and little jelly, gotta say. But
definitely jelly. Tons of neon lights, tons of people there, tons of video games. Thomas was wearing a PlayStation shirt, so it was very much themed in that way. I was really about it. Definitely jealous, as you said, Scott. But if we would have went together as a squad, what do you think? Do you think we would have been able to get things done, considering how much fun we would have had as a threesome, a throuple, if you would?
Probably would have been Thomas getting all the footage he got, and then me and you just on an arcade somewhere just playing games.
He's wrangling us up like little kittens. Hey guys, we need to do this thing. We're like, hold on, give me 10 more seconds, Dad.
Yeah, a lot of extra footage
so
of
we
us
can finish this
trying
game.
out games, probably.
There's some news in the IGN world. I believe there was like a Xbox reveal situation where they had a bunch of new video games and things like that. But we'll get into that sort of, kind of, not really, just because we're not Xbox owners. But we are aware that those video games exist. But I don't think it's as important as this other news, which is, I guess, isn't really news. But according to the Hollywood Reporter, there is a new exclusive Warner Brothers movie coming out called The Day the Earth Blew Up. And one of the things on the Hollywood Reporter is Porky and Daffy pull a fast one in a new Looney Tunes movie. And to say the least, the last Looney Tunes movie we got, I believe, was Space Jam with LeBron James. But what are your thoughts on Looney Tunes as a whole, especially now since we've had a lot of cartoons come back in better animated styles, and also kind of that nostalgic modern situation we've been going through as well?
I'm a big fan of the Looney Tunes. Growing up, that was definitely in my circle of cartoons that were like, if they were on, I'd watch them. If they were like Tom and Jerry and all that stuff. Yeah, they're great. I think there's still a spot for them. I'm not really watching them as much now. It'd be interesting to see like if kids still are drawn to these characters. I don't see why they wouldn't, though, as long as like you get some good writing. Like you can get some pretty good physical comedy out of these characters. So I think there are stories to be had. I'm interested to see this live action. Oh, is it a live action crossover?
No, I believe it's more of a traditional animated situation.
Oh, okay.
From what I'm reading,
still very cool though. I mean, like this could be an opportunity to get like the next generation of kiddos back on the Looney Tunes. I think sometimes it just comes down to it just not being on TV, so the next generation doesn't really watch it. Not to say it's bad. It's just not there for them. So you get more cool movies like this one coming up, then can get new fans going. Because I was always a big fan. What about you?
No, same. I'm always a big fan of back in the day when Looney Tunes was they used to do kind of like the literal renditions of things. So they would be talking about like a U-boat, and it'd be a boat in the shape of a U, or they talk about like a flying turtle, and it'd be like a turtle literally flying. But everyday kind of words, and they would kind of make it into comedic, cartoonish puns. I really enjoyed that. I don't know that they'll do this on this one, but I think it's nice to kind of have that those original characters kind of move more into that modern field. Mm-hmm. I believe this movie is set to kind of premiere in an international animated film festival. So hopefully, if it does well, we'll get to see more of this kind of content. I think now that we know animated movies can be successful, mm-hmm. but also blockbusters, bringing back this kind of content, I think, would be good for a kind of our generation, maybe pre our generation, or maybe just introducing, new individuals to that. Because what is Looney Tunes? Looney Tunes is Warner Brothers.
Correct.
So it makes sense for Warner Brothers to kind of push that out there as well, too, to keep them not only relevant, but keep their IP up to date.
Right. And they have the Multiverses game, which is similar to like Smash Brothers, which I think is still doing well. They seem like they're still pumping out updates and whatnot. So, kids are playing that, and they see a movie coming out, whatever, it's cool. It's keeping them in the loop.
We played that game one time. It wasn't a bad game. Just we played games that are similar that are more fun potentially, like Smash.
Yeah.
Well, let's move into the trailer section of today's show.
The Joystick Show.
Trailers. We need to get to those transitions in better.
Mm-hmm.
But the first trailer of the day, or the show, Borderlands. I know we got we've seen a little clip before, a teaser, but now we got kind of a more full-on trailer. It shows all of the characters and things and such. I know you've heard some things online about it in terms of first reactions. Why don't you go and give the listeners, the viewers, a little taste of what we've been hearing?
Yeah, okay, so in the trailer itself, what we get is like a little snapshot and kind of like an action scene. The four main characters, big actors. I mean, we got Kate Blanchett as Lilith. Mm-hmm. We have Kevin Hart as Roland, Jamie Lee Curtis as Dr. Patricia Tannis, and maybe a lesser known Florian. Ooh, he's this Montiano.
Don't
maybe nailed it. Not sure.
Mess it up.
As Craig, I believe Craig is that the gas mask wearing type of wild. But we see them kind of like traversing in this like sort of what looks like maybe like a warehouse or some sort. We have Claptrap the robot, played by Jack Black, or voiced by Jack Black. Claptrap is like this little robot that rolls around on one wheel, comedic relief. Mm-hmm. That part seemed funny. Like Claptrap's like they're waiting up on him, funny dialogue there. But the wardrobe maybe? That's the best word. The wardrobe for this movie like looked a little weird, out of place. Someone in the comments said it looked like an SNL sketch, and I felt like that nailed that feeling for me. It feels like good enough for a sketch, but not good enough for a movie, based on that scene that we saw. Yeah. What was your take?
I kind of agree in that situation, just in terms of like the production value, where SNL is trying to do kind of like a parody or a satire on certain things. The how the camera is and how the shots are, the dialogue especially. Mm-hmm. I understand that there's a lot of funny people in the movie, and they're taking kind of a lot of the cues from the game, and they're trying to really incorporate it in. And I don't know that it will be the case, but it does give me the vibe of too much fan service. Where it's essentially just pandering to the Borderlands audience. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that would be super awesome. One of the things I was talking about with another individual from work, imagine if you had a video game that the devs and the IP owners kind of collaborated on. Mm-hmm. So you would have specific objectives to do, much like Helldivers, right? They give you certain objectives. They try to ask you to finish them. There's consequences and there's rewards, right? So imagine there's a video game with IP. You go towards a certain thing, and then that thing shows up in the actual movie or series that is being portrayed in the actual live action situation, right? And in this Borderlands, I would be like, oh, that would be cool if it came from, the individuals who are playing the video game, and they would want to see it in there in terms of the fanfare. But I don't know that it's going to suffer from this, but it does kind of seem dialogue-wise from the small clips we had that I don't know if this. I mean, we know the story, but I don't know if it's going to be portrayed in a way where it's going to be meaningful and eventful, much like Fallout, where it's got a lot of weight, or if it's just going to be more comedic, like Twisted Metal is. I'm down for both.
Yeah.
But I think expectation-wise, you can't really compare it to Fallout now, which is completely fine. But I would like to see a lot more gore because Borderlands is very gory. Fallout is also very gory. There are some, I think, things that I want to see it hit. But are you, based off of the trailer, are they doing the characters service based off of your experience with the characters? And does it make you excited to watch the movie?
I mean, based on the characters, so the thing that stood out for me with the games was the comedy aspect to it. I like that it's kind of goofy and there's room for just like that silliness. It seems like this movie may have a lot of that. So, but based on this trailer by itself, I'm not completely sold. I definitely want to see more. But yeah, like if they're, I guess like if they're like really leaning into it being super cheesy, then like that's another thing too, right? Like I need to see more so I know the tone they're trying to set. Because if they're trying to lean into something being cheesy and over the top, and like the hair's supposed to look dumb or whatever it is, then I'm sold for that too. I just gotta I want to make sure it feels the way they want it to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think Eli Roth is directing it, so historically he's had a very good. He has a good reputation in terms of the movies he's directed and kind of like the fanfare, or I guess you should say that like the cult following he has.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from that aspect, positives. But again, I guess we're just gonna have to watch it to find out, dude.
Yeah,
watch it to find out. Before we get into reviews, I have a fun little hypothetical we can go through. In the idea of something that we'll review a little bit later, Hitman. Imagine that you're an assassin. Okay. You can kind of choose whatever assassin you'd like to be, how you would like to assassinate. Are you sneaky? Are you verbose? Are you more of like a creepy serial killer type? Whatever you want to be. But every serial killer has kind of like a shtick. So now imagine that you're, as an assassin, you have one thing that it's like a quirk, but it's a detriment. So it's one thing that you have that prevents you from doing your thing, but you have to fight. So for example, let's say you have a gag reflex every single time someone says no, right? So as you're trying to kill somebody, the person's like, no, no, no. And you're like, but you still have to do your job, right? Funny. So we're going off of straight up funny. So what funny quirk would you give yourself as a hitman that would be hilarious in the midst of assassination?
I don't know. The gagging is pretty physically hilarious.
Yeah.
That maybe something like the burping. You're like, excuse me, like just always just. When you get nervous, I don't know. Like, when would you apply that? I guess when you get nervous.
Yeah, could be nervous. Could be right before you're about to pull the trigger. Or like pull back your bow. I don't know what kind of assassin.
Yeah, you get the hiccups or something. So it throws off your aim. Like, gassy. Gassy.
Yeah.
You can't help but fart, so you start making noises. So when you're trying to be sneaky, you just rip loud ones. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's
yeah.
It's like right after you shoot someone's like, and then like along with a bah, and then you're out.
Yeah, that'd be so hilarious. Imagine if there was like witnesses and they'd be like, "Oh my god, you just killed that dude," but then you also just
I think he farted.
shat your pants.
He came in, he shot him, and I think he shat his pants.
Oh my god. He was wearing white jeans, but they were brown on the back.
You just wear white. Like,
Yeah. Oh my
you
god,
wear
so
white, you
funny.
shit your pants.
Yeah. I guess I'd probably preventing. I don't like to have dirty hands. Oh, so I don't like to have dirty hands, but the way that I love to assassinate is by like smothering people with petroleum jelly.
After they're dead or while they're dying?
So like I just
Or
I
you
don't
smother
like
them to death?
yeah, with Vaseline on their face. I don't know that that's possible. But so imagine, right?
Is it a quantity
I
thing?
don't like to have it must be a quantity. So I just have like globs of Vaseline and I just try to like come up from behind and shove it into your holes.
You wait till they yawn.
Yeah. Good guy. But I also
it makes it hard for you to hold them because it's Vaseline.
yeah, because it's super slippery. Oh my god. I don't like my hands to be oily, but I'm also allergic to latex. So I have to have a specific kind of glove, but I typically don't get those gloves, but I use the Vaseline to try to smother. It's a whole thing. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Imagine.
But you've doubled down on the Vaseline. That's your calling card. So
Yeah.
you got to do it.
I also probably own probably common stock in Vaseline as well too, Johnson & Johnson, just so I can perpetuate, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're helping it.
It's kind of like insider trading, so maybe it's not the best. Okay.
You just walk around with tubs of it or something? What do you think your gear is like?
Oh, that's a great
Like
question.
instead of chalk, you just got this thing of Vaseline that you dip into like climbers?
Oh, you know
This
what I
little
do
bucket.
have?
What's that?
I have like a vest,
Uh-huh.
okay? But the vest on the inside is just aluminum,
Yeah.
and then it's covered by like a cloth, and I just rip the cloth off, and it's just like a container. The vest is a container, so I can just scoop up all of the Vaseline on my chest like this, and then just wrap it around you.
You're like, I got one go with this.
I don't have backup, dude. I don't have backup.
You leave the scene of slipping and sliding because it's all over your body at this point.
Yeah, I know.
The cleanup's always a
Oh,
mess.
Yeah, the cleanup is tough.
Why'd I
dude.
do this to myself?
Why did we do that?
That's so funny.
Ah, man, so that's my assassin situation. Oh, frick, we forgot to talk about. You watched a trailer for Gears of War, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I did.
Oh, man,
it's
tell us
called
about
Gears
it,
of War E-Day. It's something that I think they showed at the IGN Live. It looks pretty cool. It's the trailer itself is Dom from the original games, and he's fighting himself a fan. He's one of
Zerg.
the one of the main Gears bad guys, the typical big buff dude with a gun. People who play the game probably hate me right now, but imagine that guy, and he's going head to head with this guy and just like fighting him one on one, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
He ends up killing the dude, and you just kind of like, I guess if you didn't know for sure, he's not wearing his bandana, but by the end of it, he throws on his bandana, and you're like, it's Dom.
That's Dom.
And I think it takes place like, I read 14 years before the first game. I'm not sure if that's super accurate, but it looks like it's a prequel, which is cool because I really like the. I remember playing the first 3 years back on Xbox, so it's been some time. But this trailer definitely made me want to
play the game again.
Play it again. Pick up an Xbox.
No.
Probably not gonna, but maybe want to. And towards the end of the trailer, had that Mad World starting to come in with the piano.
Oh yeah,
dun, 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 you know, you're like, oh shit. So
damn,
it's pretty cool.
Is 14 years before the weirdest amount of years before a set date? 14 years seems pretty random.
That's
I guess.
why. So I read that from a comment actually. So and I'm like, that seems like a long time actually.
14 years.
But maybe he's been doing it that long.
14
I'm
years.
trying to think, man, you're
So was he
14
only,
years
like-
into a war and you're still alive, and that's the first Gears? Like,
Yeah, that's pretty good though.
damn, I mean, I guess that's why he's a badass, right? Like, he's so seasoned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It seems like the city's just falling apart and whatnot. When they zoom out, it's like the city's kind of still put together, and you just see like they're falling apart.
All that cool stuff.
Yeah, there's all that cool stuff. Monsters coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
Took me back.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's like a Arkham darkness to it. So I like the tone of it a lot. Which kind of goes into our first review.
Oh, real quick, I saw this other trailer I
yeah?
forgot to mention. And looks like Starship Troopers Extermination. So Starship Troopers, they're like the movie that's basically Helldivers 2 is based off of.
Yeah.
I guess they had a game, didn't do too well, I believe, and then
where you could build the forts.
Yeah, you can make the forts, and I think it's like a 16-man. I guess
it's coming to console.
I think so. Yeah, it says October 11th. PS5 stuff. So
that's cool.
That could be cool. I mean, especially if you're a Helldivers fan, and if you're a Helldivers fan, you're probably a fan of the Starship Troopers IP. It'd be cool for them to have like an actual fun game, especially if they like maybe they take some stuff that worked in Helldivers and start applying to that. I'm definitely down for like another Helldivers type of game.
Yeah.
Well, I'll play them both.
I've seen the Steam computer game where they were doing it.
Okay.
Where essentially you have a certain amount of time to like build up your base, and then they come in hordes, and then you're base building and repairing at the same time while you're doing that.
Oh, okay. So I guess this is that.
It's that.
I think so.
I mean, the game looks fun. It definitely has definitely teamwork based, but the fact that you have more people is a lot cooler, and the fact that you can build bases too is kind of more in line with Starship Troopers. So I like the fact that it's a lot more into the not the IP, but I guess into like the genre of Starship Troopers. Is that what drew you to the game, or what do you like best about what you're seeing in this game?
I think the thing I liked best was I kind of like that horde mode aspect where you can kind of build a base, get support weapons. I know it's Helldivers 2, there are certain things you can drop, but they last for like 30 seconds and then they're gone. Yeah. It'd be cool to have something similar to when we were playing World War Z, but which is a zombie game where you can kind of set up turrets and all that kind of stuff, mortars. But to actually have a base and like kind of help replenish it and to have more people, which is pretty cool. Have like a full 16-man crew would be pretty nuts. But mainly the base thing. That's what I'd like to try it.
No, for sure. I think the added like allure to that, it's of Starship Troopers versus like inspired by, is going to be really helpful. And I can also stand out from Helldivers because Helldivers is very much like a drop in and kind of do missions, whereas this is going to be a little bit more build a base, defend, potentially move to another place, build a base, defend, etc. Yeah. Larger and tailored to a lot more of the Starship Trooper fan base, which I think, to be honest, why haven't they made another Starship Troopers? I understand that there's a cult following. There was a number 2.
Which was way different. But it'd be nice, like you're saying, like if they did do a sequel. Yeah. They've done it before, like you kind of just like, or just rebrand Starship Troopers. Like either remake it or say like this is the future or this is a prequel or whatever it is. But you can still do something with that same universe where you can kind of keep the first movie, maybe like ignore the second one. Make it happen.
Yeah. Well, in general, everybody in that first movie is still alive. Neil Patrick Harris is still alive. I don't remember anybody else's first name or last name. He dies in that movie, though. Oh, he does? Neil Pat?
Yeah, I think he gets killed by a brain sucker. Like, I think it stabs his head.
I don't recall. Dang, well, that ruins my sequel aspirations.
I know, it's really hinging on him, huh?
I know, yeah. Hinging. Snap. That didn't really hit as good. Anyway, so
moving on.
Onto this. Moving on.
The Joystick Show.
Onto the reviews.
Ready?
The Acolyte came onto the scene. You were able to watch it?
Unfortunately, I still haven't been able to watch it. I had some stuff going on outside of the pod. That kind of worked. Yeah, life keeps you busy sometimes. So I wasn't able to catch that yet. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. I talked a little bit with Thomas about it. He seemed to say he's enjoyed it so far. I want to hear more about like why and whatnot. But I am interested to hear what you thought about it.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I like about it,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna go and on a lesson, a life lesson for myself and potentially for others.
Okay.
But media. So what did I like about it? I like that the premise. It's before time, so we kind of get to see the Jedi in a more of a arrogant stage in their life being. Just in terms of the characters we see in the pilot. And then we kind of see that there's a darkness kind of around, and again, the arrogance of the Jedi. They don't really know that this is even taking place. I do like the Carrie Ann Moss. I was going to say Carrie Ann Inaba. She's from Dancing with the Stars.
Okay.
She's really great in the pilot episode as well too. She brings that Matrix vibe.
Yeah.
So when there was a battle scene, I was like, oh man, this is super tight. And then you kind of get into like the more of the ancillary characters on the side, and they're kind of coming together, and this mystery is unfolding. And we're getting to see the premise kind of push through. I really enjoyed that. And obviously the Acolyte, there is a bad guy taking place, and I believe this is supposed to be taking place 100 years before the Phantom Menace, supposedly, right? And so who is this bad guy that's supposed to be, the master of this Acolyte? And to me, I thought to myself, wow, this would be a really cool introduction to someone like Palpatine, because he's still super relevant. I think Plagueis was his master, but he ended up defeating Plagueis, Darth Plagueis previously, because they were the two longest, living Darths, or I should say Sith at a point in time, I believe. Don't quote me on Wikipedia. And I think in terms of how it's so different, where we're getting to see kind of like a less beautiful side of the Jedi. We get to see kind of the dark side's version of why turning, or why going to the quote unquote dark side, or using the Force for your own selfish reasons kind of makes a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
I do see a lot of recurring themes. There's potentially twins in this situation. There's obviously Jedi who are involved with their Padawan emotionally, which is another theme we kind of see throughout Jedis in the previous movies, etc. And in that, I think it's going to be an interesting move forward. And again, I'm all for the availability of maybe having like a super movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian comes in, Ahsoka comes in, and then we have this really big like Marvel style movie. It would make sense in the Disney realm, and I think this might add to that because we're gonna get to see kind of the pretense to all of it, hopefully. But then comes to like the life lesson of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of social media, especially for the promotion of the movie, had individuals, actors, actresses of the movie talking about the movie. And for me, I started to become biased based off of my fandom of Star Wars, and then listening to these actors and actresses who get to live in the mantle of Star Wars, Jedi, etc., etc.,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of having their own like ideas about it, which is completely fine. So the biggest one was one of the actors saying that Anakin blew up the Death Star. That's Charlie Barnett, who plays Yord Fondar.
Mm-hmm.
Under pressure might have been kind of a slip of the tongue, and it's not a big deal. Like we as fans know who blew up the Death Star, but it's just an interesting thing to kind of view someone who's taking it up, who says they love Star Wars and kind of makes that kind of mistake. I'm not saying people can't make mistakes, but I am saying it was very difficult for me to be like, it'd be like me, playing a Marvel character, and being like, oh yeah, I love it when, Captain America led the X-Men into battle against, the Death Star or something. You know what I mean? Like just very basic. It's been out since 1976 kind of knowledge.
Right.
And then I believe there were some other things that were brought up that people are notating in terms of like socio-political things that are brought up in the media and that are prevalent in American society now. And I agree that there are portions where people can kind of connect with. And I agree that people are entitled to their own opinions, etc. But when it comes to something like Star Wars, which is universal, both literally and figuratively, to have very finite views on what it is, or just takes that are kind of beyond the scope of what Star Wars is, and I don't speak for Star Wars, so I can't even say that that's the case.
Right.
So, for example, talking about the sexuality of robots, or the fact that so far in the majority of the Acolyte series, all of the bad guys have been white males, right? Those are two things that came up in the media. And I don't think those are super important to talk about in terms of the show as a whole or Star Wars as a whole. Again, not my place to say because I'm just a fan. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But it did make it very difficult for me to kind of enjoy it, knowing that that's kind of the connotation in the background. For everybody on this podcast, we're all from Hawaii. You saw The Flash and you liked it. But again, knowing that Ezra Miller kind of put up that mantle, very interesting. Or the fact that we don't have any Kang the Conqueror anymore because Jonathan Majors is in that situation that he's in. So it's just interesting, the picking and choosing of when and where we're going to allow certain things to happen and or accept certain things. Can we separate the art from the artists? It's a huge, kind of a huge thing now, especially again something so beloved as Star Wars.
Right.
So that affected me. I don't think that it should, and I'm only mentioning it because for individuals who are looking at things from that kind of a viewpoint, I think it's detrimental to, I guess, have those judgments not based on your own thoughts of it, but allowing other people to influence you. Definitely be wary of that, especially in the time of media where, there's a lot of things going on. So that's my lesson that I learned in watching The Acolyte, and then kind of allowing media to supersede some of my own thoughts. But
right.
What have you heard? Or go ahead.
No, yeah, I know what you mean. Like there are definitely like not only this show, any show really, or things you might like where you hear sometimes just comments, even just comments in articles or in Instagram or whatnot, can just make you have an idea of what you might be seeing when you watch it. Could be wrong. Or right, whatever. Or it could just like sway you into, not even sway you. It makes you think about it differently than if you were to just watch it, without reading any of this stuff.
Yes.
And it could be about anything. And I am definitely one that I have to constantly like battle that. Like for instance, say a movie comes out and everyone's like, "Oh, it's just junk. Like it's not good. Whatever it is," and they're just bashing it to bash it. Sometimes like I'll start reading that and like almost start buying into it and be like, dude, just watch the movie and judge yourself, right? So I have to always check myself as well. So I've been hearing good things about it, and then the things I haven't really watched it though, but the negative things I should say I've been hearing about it are a lot of the same things I've been hearing about any Marvel / Star Wars Disney thing coming out. And sometimes I don't know if that person or those groups, whoever wrote it, even took the time to watch it yet. It's just a lot of, woke this and blah, blah, blah. So it's hard to take any of that like seriously because I'm like, for all I know, they just are repeating someone who didn't see it but pretended to see it and whatnot. So I definitely need to get eyes on it. But I think it's fair to say that, especially now with so much social media and we're checking everything, we're forever being thrown opinions in our faces from other people. Like, this show, for instance, right? Like, that's what we do. We're talking about how we like things, why we like things, whatnot. There's so many other things we follow, whether we want to watch it or not. They're just telling us what they think about it. And sometimes we strongly agree, sometimes we strongly disagree. And that can lead us, that could just stay with us when we're going to go ahead and watch the thing that we planned on watching anyway. So it's good. I'm glad you we're saying that, and that's something to think about for sure. Check yourself, and everyone's got their own opinions, and follow your own opinion. Like, make your own decisions.
it's definitely a thing to reiterate. Don't just listen to something or hear of something. Do the thing. Go do the action. Go do the thing. Get the experience so that you can speak on it, so that you can experience it, so that you can have weight behind what you're saying, and then that you can actually see and do the thing versus like, oh, I heard this, so it's going to prevent you from doing things. You got to live your own life, like you said. You got to have your own opinions. Again, everybody's entitled to their own. But our producer, Nikki Rock, also talks about positivity. Got to be positive. Like, does it make sense to put things down? Not necessarily. Are you putting it down when you're speaking ill of it, per se? I mean, criticisms are there, but at the same point in time, like, the positive part about Acolyte is that, it's more exposure, right? We get to see from different sides of the whole Jedi Sith realm, from a different time frame as well. And then it's going to help push our knowledge of the actual IP. And then we're going to get a lot more, hopefully, cool things, if not cool fans, and maybe fan fiction from it as well, too. So there's a lot of positives to be from it. Mm-hmm. But, getting there sometimes can be difficult, like you said, navigating through all of those extra. But any hoosers.
Yeah. And then real quick, in regards to the Charlie Barnett saying the wrong thing or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it could have very well just been like, he's under the gun. Maybe it could be very well he's new to the Star Wars franchise. Like, if you're one that doesn't even like, doesn't like Star Wars, but you're an actor and you get the opportunity to get that job, then you're probably cramming everything. Like, okay, blah, 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 blah. Yes. Yeah, you might get some stuff wrong, okay? Or he's a big fan and he just fucked up. You think he's beating himself up more than anyone ever could, I bet. Like, I said the wrong name. Like, what the hell? Like, the other day I couldn't think of one character who's named Scott in the Marvel Universe. And I was like, yeah, I really can't think of anyone. And then they were like, yeah, Scott Summers. I'm like, oh yeah, no shit. Like, we just watched X-Men 97 and I couldn't bring it up. So it's like, that shit happens, But yeah, we all just gotta take it a little easier on ourselves and whatnot. But yeah, I'm gonna check it out for sure. Hopefully it picks up steam, everyone starts enjoying it a little more.
So, all that being said, I think check it out. It's gonna be it's still a great watch. You love Star Wars. Obviously new people coming into the genre as well too, and into the scene. The cast is pretty decent. Costume design is spectacular. So yeah, do that. But on to review numero dos. You got to watch, I believe it's a movie, is it?
It's a movie.
What is it called?
It is called Hitman. I recently just saw it for the first time. It just dropped on Netflix. But I'm looking at the date on here and it says 2023.
Oh, that's the one with
I guess that's when it came out.
Glenn Powell and Adria Aronia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 666. It's a comedy action movie. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty good time.
Elaborate.
I think I'm liking Glenn Powell doing, like, he does a pretty good job of doing comedy. Yeah. Like, he has his own way of doing it and going about it. And it works. He does a bunch of different characters in this movie. The premise of this movie is he is like a professor, and he also works part-time for the police department. He's not like part of them, but he gets like hired on to do like tech work. He's usually like the dude in the van working with like undercover people. Okay. Like, so there's a dude that normally goes in undercover. He's like making sure everything's recording and whatnot. There comes a point in this where the undercover guy is getting suspended, and Glenn Powell and his character in this movie is Gary Johnson. Gary gets bumped up to be the undercover dude, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, you've the ins and outs. You've listened in on a lot of these conversations. You know how it goes. This one shouldn't be too bad. You just gotta like do what you hear. This one should be an easy one. Go in there and pretend to be the hitman." And he goes in and he kind of does a great job right away of becoming like a different character. And he does such a good job that they're like, "Oh, you should like keep doing this while this guy is suspended." And he ends up doing that. So he's like he's going in, and basically this undercover work is people are trying to hire a hitman,
Mhm.
and it's usually a cop who's pretending to be the hitman. As soon as they receive the money and hear that they're like, yeah, I want to kill this person, then when they leave, they get arrested.
Oh.
Then they go to court and see if they get, booked or not, like how bad was it or whatnot. Sometimes they go to jail, and then sometimes I think it's like a lesser punishment or whatnot. But he does such a good job. He like starts putting on different characters. He like looks up like how to put on wigs. He's like changing his accents up. So it's pretty funny to hear him doing different characters. Yeah. Sometimes he's like a Russian guy, a German guy. He's a super cool guy, a more nerdy guy. Like he's just doing all these different things. He's like, I'm gonna dress the way this person thinks a hitman, the way he thinks they might think a hitman's gonna look. So he kind of does research on the person trying to hire the hitman, and he's like, okay, if I really want them to believe a hitman, I'm gonna go into whatever they fantasize it being. So it's like, if this guy fantasizes it being like a German guy with gloves and is whatever, then I'm gonna be that guy. Wow. And he does a good job. It's cool seeing him in all these different characters. And then he ends up running across Adria Arona. Is that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
cool.
Sure.
Arjona, and she wants to kill her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like the super cool guy. I believe his name is like Ron. He becomes like Ron, the guy who has all the confidence to do whatever he wants to do. Yeah. And like in talking to her, it ends up kind of turning into like a date. It's kind of like a romantic comedy, too. It turns into a date, and then like he gathers like she's maybe in an abusive relationship, so this is why she wants to kill him. And he's like, why don't you just take the money you're going to give me, leave, and like don't hire me, just get out of the situation. And she's like, okay, takes that advice, boom. And then the police are like, what are you doing? What's going on? This is so he ends up kind of liking her. They end up kind of getting together, and then there's like this big thing about him pretending to be a hitman, she thinking he's a hitman, they're dating, and he's still working for the police. And then like there's all this like balancing he has to do, and Ron is kind of bleeding into Gary's life now. So when he starts teaching, he's like more like Ron. He's wearing like he's dressing better. He's dropped the glasses. Not that glasses ever have anything to do with being cool. Mm-hmm. And but there's even a little like a scene where the students are like, when did our professor get so hot? It's like all of a sudden he's like carrying this like,
oh, interesting.
He has a lot more charisma. Yeah. And it's just like this real balancing act, and he's just having to like improvise everything. This guy's a smart dude in the movie, because the old cop ends up kind of catching on to him, and like he has to keep digging his way out of this, and like this situation he finds himself in is just keeps snowballing. It sounds like if this wasn't a comedy, it could get really dark, but they figured out a way to keep it light the whole movie, and it's a fun watch. I think if you got some time, check it out. Great leads, the whole cast is great, and yeah, it's a pretty funny movie.
Wow. I mean, from what you said, it's very interesting, because from a viewer standpoint, and I haven't watched the show, but the way you were describing is like the viewer can watch this person be themselves and then grow into these characters to fulfill the need, but also to like it bleeds into themselves. The idea of like being confident, dressing confident, acting confident, that'll bleed into your own life, and also too, as Glenn Powell's character is studying to do these things and like trying to make himself better at the thing, he's making himself better at his own life. And as a person who's viewing it, you're going through it with him. So I assume you're immediately involved with him as a character. You care about him. You want to see him succeed. And you're getting to kind of grow with him. So you have a lot of investment. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true. Yeah. You're rooting for him the whole movie.
Rooting from the whole movie. And in terms of the director, Mr. Richard Linklater, which is a crazy last name. It's like two different words put together. It's a compound word. He did Boyhood. He did Before Midnight. He did A Scanner Darkly. He did School of Rock. So just by those things, in terms of the things he's directed, you can kind of see where this is going. You can kind of see the undertone, the minutia of the movie in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard of this movie, and it just came out on Netflix, you said, but apparently it was into 2023. So, what are your thoughts on why? How are you only hearing about it now, considering how good it was to you?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like rom-coms don't do as well as they did at one point in theaters. So if this did drop in theaters at one point, I could very well see it just kind of blowing by my radar. Especially if there's like, they're competing with like super giant big budget movies. And with, movies being so expensive nowadays, you pick and choose. But this seems like a movie like, I'll just wait till I can watch it at home. So when I first saw it drop, it's like, dropping this Friday. I had thought it was like for Netflix, but maybe I'm wrong. Just because I see the 2023, I'm assuming it played somewhere else prior.
But it's interesting too.
It's. Yeah.
I mean, Glenn Plow.
It's a fun one.
Glenn Plow. Glenn Plows. Glenn Powell has a writing credit in this, so it seems like he's really coming up into the Hollywood, right? He's acting, he's getting bigger roles, he's writing in things now. He's getting residuals from things like Netflix, obviously. So he's come a long way from Spy Kids 3.
Was he in Spy Kids?
That's his first credit here on IMDb.
Who was he?
He was. His credit is Long Fingered Boy as Glenn Powell Jr. So, I mean, he's come a long way. So that's kind of cool that we get to see kind of a differently told idea of like a quote unquote hitman too. You don't really a person who was in a position kind of came into that position, almost like what is that one movie where what's his face is a spy?
Is it the Get Smart?
Yeah, Get Smart. Oh. I mean, sort of, kind of. He kind of gets into that position, and then he kind of grows into it. He kind of wanted to be there, but I think this one's a little bit more homegrown, I want to say.
Yeah, I found it interesting too. I didn't. Oh, and also, sorry, it's kind of based. It says it's based on a true story. So apparently, there was an article written about a dude who was kind of in this. Like, he was a teacher that also worked with the police department and ended up doing undercover work. I don't know. It was just so weird. Like, watching the movie, I'm like, to what extent I thought you'd need to be like an officer or something to do undercover work. Like, I don't know too much about that, but so I didn't know what was like too far fetched, like in just rom-com reality, or I mean, maybe the police can just hire you to go undercover. I'm kind of weird.
Like you need
but
credential.
Loosely true, at least. That's kind of crazy.
Based on an idea.
There's a dude out there that did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'll definitely check it out. I mean, you did a very great job at wanting me to watch it.
If nothing else, just for the characters, I thought he did a really good job. I feel like that could definitely be where the writing credits were, because I could, he even changes up his voice, and he's like, whatever he does, like just a bunch of things. I could see him just like going for like minutes off camera, just like getting into it, and like, okay, like you ready? Let's go to roll, and then just try things. So, yeah, it was fun to see.
Well, I'll watch it, but something that we both watched, Sweet Tooth. We've been talking about this show now for 2 years now? 1 year? 15 years? It is based off of a comic book, Vertigo. Comics of DC Sichumahu. And who is the writer of the comic book again? Jeff Lemire?
Possibly.
Yeah. So the premise of the show, if you haven't watched it, is that it's a post-apocalyptic. There's a disease that's ravaging the entire world. There's factions of individuals, but there's also these hybrids. Children are now being born half or full, like animal situation. So maybe one's part bird, so they have a beak and they can fly. or they have talons, or one is a gopher but is like a human being, sort of, kind of, or the main.
Yeah, it varies, right? Like he's more gopher looking,
Yeah,
but he's also a boy.
his name is Bobby, right? And then and then you have the main character, who happens to be like half deer, I guess, or half elk, and then just has the horns, just has the ears, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think first season is establishing the characters and the premise. Second season is climaxing into our first big bad, and leading into kind of the closure of what season 3 happens to be, is like how does this all end? You know, we've gotten through all the rough parts. We've seen how terrible it can be. How does this end? And you've got to watch episode 1, correct?
Yeah, I've only got to watch 1 so far, but it does jump you right into where they kind of left off last.
Why don't you recap episode 1 for us? Tell us how it made you feel, and yeah, we'll start it from there.
Okay. So Sweet Tooth is traveling with Big Man,
Tommy Jeopard,
and he calls him Big Man, and then he has one friend that he met in the zoo they were in.
What's her face?
What's her name? She's like half pig or something.
May? No.
Maya?
Season
3 cast.
It's Wendy. It's Wendy. Nailed it.
Wendy?
Yep. Wendy.
Okay. Wendy, and then the other one that was part of the the Wildlands type of situation.
Her name is Bear, I think.
Bear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bear.
So it's the 4 of them. They're traveling. They have the military vehicle that they're rolling around in. Humvee. They end up stumbling across they're trying to get to Alaska.
Oh yeah.
So,
Good luck.
Good luck. So they think they're on the right path, from what they know. They stumble across a casino and end up finding some food and stuff in there. But the people who own it, people who are still there, like claiming it, are like these 4 old people who, like, I guess just never left the casino. This scene was interesting just because, like, I guess they're older, so you think they're gonna be like really nice, but like they're also like savage. Like one of the dudes is like, "Nah, we're not." He has his gun, and they're all like, "You're not staying here the night. Can't have any food. Beat it." And
savage.
Savage. They're like, "F you, little kid." They're like, "But they're kids," and like, "I don't give a fuck. Like, get out of here."
Dang.
No, it's fucked up. The one thing I didn't understand though is like, they mentioned not having soda, and they're like, "Oh, it's just the soda machine ran out of syrup." Like, other than that, this place is great. And then main character has syrup on him, and he's like, "Why don't we bet?" And they do some sort of like roulette betting on
yeah.
If we win, that small part, I guess it's in the comics too, but it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, why don't they just trade? Like, why don't they just trade food for syrup?
Yeah.
Versus like betting.
Yeah. There's holes.
And then they bet it all on one number. Like they pick just pick red or black. Like I didn't know what that part didn't make sense. But they leave with nothing. The old lady comes up after they lose and it's like, "Hey, like maybe try this spot out. Here's some directions. And also take this." And you think she give him food, she gives him a fucking hat. You're like, "God damn it, get out of here, lady." So they get a hat and they start leaving back in the Humvee, runs out of gas. Start hoofing it on foot. Big Man is having a bit of a tood.
Yeah.
He's not having a good time. And then an avalanche happens.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Shogun-esque.
Shogun-esque. And then they flash to the mom, right? That's his mom, right?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
Alaska.
Birdie. Yep.
And she's like up at like, I guess the place they're trying to get to. And they give a little backstory and like what she's been up to and all that stuff. And she is being should have done a recap on like what had happened prior, but she's like being hunted down by this dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does he want?
He essentially wants to take her back to they're kind of like a cowboy clan, essentially. But it's the Asian mom with her 2 daughters, and they were in season 3 as like kind of the predominant players in like the powers in America, and so they're trying to obtain Birdie because she's a scientist who knows how essentially to stop the what is the disease called, the ick or man.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that sounds
whatever it's called.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, you're right. And they show like that family, her daughter, is pregnant.
Oh yeah,
about to deliver soon, and she's so sure. She's like, it's gonna be a normal human. Don't worry about it. But that just goes to show like why they're so like invested in getting like the cure or whatnot.
The cure.
Because they are against animal people. So. Yep. So the
funny.
mom's trying to leave, gets hunted down by a cowboy guy. They're doing like this whole snowmobile thing. Gets shot by a dart. And then he starts just pulling his handgun out, shooting at her. And then he's expertly hits that engine, and then it dies out. He's gone. She passes out, and then he comes back. I don't know where he hid. Why he would do that? That's so weird when you see certain things in movies, and you're like,
why?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like he's chasing her, hits the engine, and then she's like, where is he? And he's like, is that when he's like, oh, I did my part. I'm going to hide in the hills. Like, I didn't understand. Like, where did he go? And then he comes out.
100% though. 100%.
Yeah. So then he takes her, and then they flash back to the kids, and they're waking up from the avalanche. Like, oh my God, no, that's crazy. He was dying. And then get up, and Big Man's like, I thought he was like sick. Maybe he is. I only saw the first episode. But he was saying basically like, I'm getting old. I'm not being a child. I just can't do this anymore. I'm probably going to die out here. So like, you guys got to listen to me when I'm saying like, we got to do certain things. Cause like, otherwise, you're not going to be able to use me to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he could be sick. I guess we find that out. But when they went to that Vegas or like the Vegas-esque casino thingy, when they said like, oh, do you guys have it? Like the sickness. He kind of just like rested his pinky on the bar, and they're like, "Oh, okay," because a sign is like your pinky starts kind of like doing a little dance, and he just kind of rested it there, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe he does have," and he was like holding it in place. I guess I'll find out, but I think that's kind of where it left off. They're kind of at each other's. I don't know. I guess like reality's kind of hitting Sweet Tooth, right? Like. He's so optimistic.
Just grow up.
And Big Man's like, dude, this is like the real, like, we could die out here. Like, we're so lucky we got this far. We got to get our shit together or we are going to die. But, after this first episode, I'm like invested all over again. I want to binge the rest of the season. But was there anything I missed? And or can you add more to that?
No, that was a great recap of kind of the beginning of the season. It is to note as well too that one of the daughters of the like the cowboy clan has 4 hybrid sons that are dog wolves, and they kind of come into play, and also to like the play between I guess like the humanity of love and the humanity of kind of pushing away difference. And so this last season very much plays with the idea of like humanity and what is it? Does it deserve to continue? We as hybrids, we're kind of able to grow and learn with each other because we're so fresh into the world. And because there's such a huge threat against us, they're victims or prey, that they're able to kind of bond together and help each other. Whereas human beings are predators, right? So they're wanting to dominate and rule. And we talked about this before a little bit, but like it kind of does seem like when there's consciousness available, it wants to have power. And so in this idea of kind of nature versus, for a lesser word, nurture, you really get to see that in this season where the humanity of not only the hybrids, but the humanity within the humans, they kind of realize that what we have left is something that we need to hold on to, not necessarily struggle to preserve. That kind of sounds the same, but it's different. but you did a very good job at recapping the first episode. I think I finished the season just because, it was getting good, and I was just like, I just want to know what happens.
For sure, yeah.
It continues to layer on the vibe of it, and it it makes Sweet Tooth grow up in a way that I don't think we expect. So he has to grow up in this show. He sees the breadth of humanity, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's neutral. And then towards the end of the series, there's not an ultimatum, but there are some choices that need to be made. And we kind of see where it all ends. There's a lot of heartache. There's a lot of points in time where I think tears might come to your eyes. But it's a beautiful... I think it's a beautiful ending of a show. If they did more of it, it would really be a struggle. They did a really good job at like kind of leaving it where it's at and giving you that nice little pearl in terms of like the idea and also the sentiment, and they send you off on your way satisfied. So it's not something where you're like, oh, it's a cliffhanger, or oh, that doesn't make sense. They really put it together in a way that's that means something and you can take to the bank. I mean, the idea of not only the IP, but the fact that it's based off of a comic book as well too, a graphic novel. So it's just got all these great tones brought into live action, which again we're seeing a lot of now. So it's just good to see it done well in that sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very nice, very nice. But continue to watch it. When you finish it, we can talk more about it. We'll definitely have to hear from Thomas about his time at IGN. And there's tons of movies coming out in this year, so obviously we'll be getting into those. And of course, The Acolyte is still here, so we're going to continue to watch that until I want to say episode 8. So it's interesting when these pilots come out with 2 episodes and you're already like a quarter of the way done with the whole series. So
is it going to be 6 episodes?
I think it's going to be 6 or 8 episodes. So it's like they give you 2 and you're like, oh, what am I going to do now? I have so much time.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I know what you mean. Like, part of me wants to just wait until the 3rd one drops and then I'll watch like a movie's worth, or you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Which I might. When does it drop?
I want to say Tuesdays, but don't quote me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But we've covered all the things we're going to cover. We've talked about the joy that's in our lives, and we stuck it to you just like we said we would. So Scott, let's finish all over our listeners' ears and give them what they came here for.
All right, guys. Thank you for sticking it.
Hey!
The Joystick Show.
If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, we'd really appreciate a follow, subscribe, and a review. Just how we like chatting with our friends, please share this with yours. Feel free to join the squad and follow us at JoyStickShow Joystick Show on Twitter and Instagram, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like submitting topics or questions to be discussed on future episodes, you can email us at joystick.show@gmail.com. As always, thank you, peace out, and make it a great rest of your week.